is there one of the turtles you like more than the others? I mean, like, is there anything like romantic or anything?
Hey, April, Oprah, I've been trying to talk her into an interspecies relationships for months now.
Whoa, hey.
Hi, it's me, Vicky, and we'll succeed the artist. He's gonna be our guest for today, and what do we have for today, you ask? When we're not busy looking into the nuances of fictional turtles, we're busy initiating people into the cult of turtles. So come here, we drink the green Kool-Aid from the chalice of middle school rejects. We got you with a comprehensive watch list for Rise of the TMNT. To preface, this recommendation is a watch list for those who are looking to get into Rise of the TMNT. The show is a load of refreshing additions to the canon, but also a treasure trove of callbacks and references to the pre-existing canon. In the short lifespan of the series, Rise was an effective and sorely underrated love letter to our turtle boys. Will, my co-host for today, has created 2 episode lists, one for plot-heavy episodes to get new viewers into the show, and one for fan service goodness that will make your inner child grin for hours, so longer than the show's existence. As we build up to our recommended watch list, let's do a quick breakdown of the TMNT phenomena, its grip on the American toy industry, and its many rise and falls. But this is a huge undertaking considering the show's initial reception, because wow? But before we jump into any of that, slap the subscribe button and tickle the notification bell and check out Will Succeed the artist's socials in the description below. Shilling still feels weird, but if this call to action thing works, then I won't question it. On to the video.
In terms of the personality, there's little to no difference. Some have even said that they switched the leadership roles of having Raph as the leader instead of Leo, but after seeing 4 of these episodes, I couldn't tell you who the leader is, because they're all exactly alike.
When Rise started, I did not like Donatello's voice until the pilot when he asked, "What's wrong with my voice?" Then I thought, what is wrong with your voice? How did I expect you to sound? My fault, bro. I now look forward to hearing your more squeaky voice in Seth Rogen's movie. My fault, D. Let's be honest. Have Ninja Turtles ever really gotten the respect they deserve? Answer, sometimes, yeah. We could argue that the peak of TMNT's popularity was during the 1980s, specifically the period of time between 88 to 97. Within the first 4 years, Playmate released the TMNT toy line. Over 1.1 billion in product was sold. We want to say this was after it was adjusted for inflation because, wow, that's a horrifying number. They superbly sold commercials, cereal, arcade games, music, and their toy line. Everyone wanted a Mutagen Man, okay? Oh my gosh, you started me on the toy line. Look, these things would have to be one of the biggest cash grabs to get children to behave ever. What with their endless accessories and unique lines, but what happens when those children grow up and then it all fades away in the childhood toy box? You turn to stories, that's what. Afterwards, there was a distinct lack of interest in the shows. The 90s did try switching up the child-friendly tone within their final seasons, definitively known as the Red Sky arc. It acted as a 2003 series prototype before the actual 2003 series came along and changed our brain chemistry. Goo for the brain, basically. As you can probably guess if you've never watched the 2003 series, it was a more comic book faithful adaptation, exploring the darker elements of the Turtles' experiences, much to the pleasure of Peter Laird, who has famously criticized the 1980s series for being a victim of extreme censorship. It was 2003, a tidal wave that brought new fans and, in my biased opinion, the best series. Even though 2012 would soon exist. With each animated adventure came new games, new action figures, and new tones to serve as companion pieces. So yeah, a lot like Pokemon's marketing strategy, actually. I don't know too many people who have an issue with the 1984 gritty Mirage comic books, or the infamous animated series of the 90s, except him. Lord knows that the 2003 and the 2012 series and the movies, Michael Bay included, regrettably, get their necessary credits and discredits, because we can't ever be happy. Rest in peace, dark live-action 90s sequels we could have had. Still, I haven't seen the Turtles get bashed nearly as bad as the next mutation, which we never discussed.
You need to leave!
Until Nickelodeon's Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was announced. Folks say it's too different. Shall, not to discredit them, but legendary YouTube critics like the Nostalgia Critic and Black Nerd Comedy have publicly bashed this series for their great differences on their respective channels. The usual talking points are obviously the character designs, which I obviously have an opinion about.
And so do I.
The episodic plot format and writing. Don't get me started on Black Nerd Comedy. He was reviewing almost every episode of the 2012 series that I thoroughly enjoyed until he suddenly stopped. No warning either. That was how I met you, man. But I can forgive Andre since he left a nice review on Rotten Tomatoes and YouTube about the rise of the TMNT movie. But what about the series? The Rise franchise as a whole? Is Rise of TMNT really so different? Conclusion?
You'll train me? Thanks, bro!
No, it's not that different. And also, different from what exactly? Because the 90s version is tonally different from the 2003 series. The 2012 Turtles are basically prepubescent kids with weapons, and the Bay Turtles are steroid-induced monsters who dance to Gwen Stefani.
Yes, TMNT fandom. Why do you choose to coronate yourself with a crown of lies and a throne of delusion?
Okay. Basically, what we're trying to say is that every version of TMNT offers a different addition to the canon. I actually believe these Rise Turtles are more like themselves than any iteration ever before. Mainly because they weren't hammered down by the responsibility of training. They can express their inner selves without being tethered to the expectations of the original series. Therefore, I will argue they have their best representation in the series. Raphael is a tough guy and big softy at heart who leads his brothers into battle, whether or not he's the leader. Donatello knows he's a genius, and I love that about him. Michelangelo is just Mikey, sweet, carefree, and fun. And don't lie, Leonardo has always been kinda cocky before he gets humbled by a window. Whether it's 2003 Leo, who believes he has superior weapons before contemplating training with their sworn enemy Shredder, or 2007 TMNT, you know the scene I'm talking about, or even Michael Bay's whatever that was, but not as awful as Next Mutation. Nobody mentioned Next Mutation. But Leo is typically depicted as the most gifted in the art of ninjutsu early on. However, in the case of 2003 specifically, Mikey outpaces Leo by sheer gifted talent. We're all aware of Mikey's potential, even if the writers aren't. Leo also tends to have some of the more heroic, corny lines with every incarnation, which plays into the theme of him telling bad jokes.
Seem a little upset. Care to talk about it?
I need him!
I love the powers given to each turtle. Mikey got that wildfire. Donnie got the gear. Raph hits like my mom when I forget to take the chicken out the freezer. And Leo wields his charisma like a banner to lead his brothers on the chart. Also, I want to get this off my chest. Splinter wasn't always depicted as Jesus.
You need to leave!
Let me explain. In the original Mirage comics, Splinter was a father figure with his own faults, a fact that Rise reminds us of from the very first episode. I mean, the very first iteration of Splinter trained the Turtles not for self-defense purposes, but to handle the dirty work for his vengeance against the Shredder. And he barely acted like a father until the 90s live-action movie. 2012 even hinted a little at his laid-back, neglectful nature in Season 1's finale. Splinter tells Leo that sacrifices have to be made. But this statement proves to be hypocritical because Splinter doesn't even sacrifice his time to go with his sons into battle. Dude was gonna stay home, rest and meditate, maybe even watch TV. April even says, the Turtles are out there risking their lives. Don't you think you should help them? He answers April with ego and pride that he's basically prepared them for every threat, including alien invasions. Then April responds later, well, some of us can't just sit around and do nothing. That was during the Technodrome epic, the showdown, our first worldly threat in 2012. How do we see Splinter for the first time in Rise? He's sitting on his ass doing nothing. Now, this didn't sit well with some fans and audiences, but when you think about everything I said, and I'm a big fan, he's been this way throughout all iterations.
Is it too much to ask for a simple thank you?
Of course it is.
And he does get into the battles eventually, even if they're his own individual battles with depression or another adventure completely separate from the Turtles. But usually, the Turtles connect to his misadventures. Kinda like in 2003 with them finding out about the Battle Nexus, which is another example of Raph taking control since he convinces his brothers to follow Splinter.
One way to find out what Master Splinter's up to. We follow
The underlined understanding of the root of the core subconscious of these characters are on point. Make room for the honorary fifth turtle, April O'Neil, back in blacker than ever, yes baby.
Yes, what big city girl doesn't have a kayak and hazmat suit?
She's always had to be some kind of flamboyant to hang with these green freaks. The power of showboating is well apparent in this series. Even Baxter Stockman shows up with his ever so fragile, famous childish ego. I would say the main difference with this series is the ego. Although it blows my mind how much these characters back up what they say. Like, shell yeah, Donnie is the smartest, so he will tell you. Leo's the most tactical, let him brag. Raph acts like his own leader, let him lead. And Mikey,
I thought you were Dr. Delicate Touch. Dr. Delicate Touch feels nothing.
Let's just say you don't ever want to meet Dr. Delicate Touch. Oh, and Shredder has always been a monster deep down inside, so to my point, things aren't so different. There are a few common misconceptions with Rise. Number 1, the Turtles were never trained by Splinter when the series started. False. Technically, they were raised on Splinter's old movies, where he would demonstrate his amazing techniques. 2, the weapons gave the Turtles powers. That can't be more wrong. Rise, especially in the last episode and movie, showcases how the weapons act more like a battery for their ninpo to harness what they already have inside themselves. And to anybody watching Rise saying, this is too much, they never had mystic abilities before, then you, my friend, should watch all of the 2003 series and see how Rise was adapted. I was to say anything was truly different about Rise, it would be Casey Jones. Both of them kinda. Casey does get on Leo's back in the movie, giving him the same attitude Raph gave him, which showcases his canon similarities with the Red One. Longtime fans can see that the spirit of shared rage is still apparent between this version of Casey and Raph. The main twist is Casey's affiliation with the Rise and chronically unhinged actions compared to other versions of Casey. Also unique is the overall threat level of the Krang and Rise. The Krang from any other series is loosely a threat. Based on the comics Utroms, the Krang have never quite struck fear into the hearts of the protagonists and viewers the way they do in Rise's movie. The thing can now suck mystic energy out from the air. What? Utterly bizarre. What? Yeah, and the fact that it can transform organic and inorganic materials into gross monster brain zombie things, it's wild. Besides the different species of turtles, art styles, tones, and more fast-paced action scenes, and purple dragons, it's not that different from what we grew up with. I don't understand why the fan base is so split with Rise. These are the same characters we know and love, and I, for one, am happy we got them. I think you should be too. So, come with me. If there are still any naysayers out there, because I won't call you haters, since you're all entitled to your opinion, like me, haters. But here is a recommendation of non-filler episodes for you that break down the true objective of the series as a whole. This is what I believe to be the most mandatory episodes to get a good grasp of the plot, while also getting a face full of great fan service. Well, without further ado, the most mandatory episodes.
And starting from the top, we have Mystic Mayhem, the pilot for Season 1, and the episode that started it all. This episode establishes the Turtles group dynamic, personalities, roles, and world building. This episode also does a great job of summarizing their antics regarding the mystical elements of a neon-drenched NYC, and the existence of underground yokai society. This episode, though largely panned upon release, is a load of comedic gold, flashy animation, and snappy dialogue that is sincerely earnest in its message. These are your Turtles, and they're back. The first major antagonist, Baron Draxum, is introduced, but with a twist. He created the Turtles. It's neat stuff. Up next is Origami Tsunami. The boys are riding off the high of their newfound powers and weapons, and legit I would too if I basically got endgame Final Fantasy weapons myself. So now they're trying to stop crimes of any size. Emphasis on trying. Their literal paper trail takes them to a case of newspaper theft. Lo and behold, they wind up meeting some familiar faces, the Foot Clan. It's a goofy, silly, and well-paced watch that economically mixes it with the introduction of one of the Turtles' biggest baddies. Up next, Donnie's Gifts. They say your greatest enemy is yourself, so when you pair 4 chaotic teenagers without the wherewithal to control their weaknesses, there will be trouble. Especially if they're basically biologically engineered human/turtle hybrids. So, Donnie does as he do. He invents tech that fixes his brother's quirks, but of course this had to come at the worst possible time. Another baddie is introduced, and he's a former star chef turned prosciutto pork extraordinaire with a meat tenderizer, meat sweats. Or, in other words, the Gordon Ramsay ripoff.
Looking like a donkey.
It's a good old episode about the power of teamwork and communication. Ralph approved. Up next, Newsworthy. The Rogues Gallery doesn't stop there because this episode covers Warren Stone, a former anchor and literal worm? Yeah, we're just gonna blame everything on mutagen, aren't we? Anyway, Warren Stone is after one thing and one thing only.
Warren Stone, your greatest foe, and... I'm sorry, Warren who?
His crime is that he's an unadulterated clout chaser running after the high of a good headline until he runs into the turtles. This is a 2-for-1 special on baddies because we get to also meet Hypno, a hippopotamus hypnotist. Jesus Christ, I actually read that. Great for us, terrible for the boys. And you guys have probably noticed a trend so far in all of these villains. Well, you'll see that they like to introduce new villains in Rise of the TMNT, and I really welcome that, to be honest. Now, as you probably know, the Rogues Gallery has been something that's been cemented into TMNT lore since basically the 1980s, so it's nice to see new villains. No complaints from me. But anyway, on to the next. Repo Mantis. Okay. The last two villains were pretty memorable, but it's time for Mikey and Donnie to meet their greatest challenge, a Repo Man. Repo does just as his title says. He'll take your dog, your grandma, your daddy, your mama, the air you breathe, and the ground you walk on. He's got money on the mind, and even though he got mutated by an Uskito, he's still got bills to pay. It's an interesting episode about the battle between wits rather than brawn. Oh my god, is that Todd? You'll be ready to lay down your life for him by the end of this episode, trust. Up next, the Fast and the Furriest. 2 words. Turtle Tank. As if Viacom wasn't working their way into our wallets already, they gave the turtles some new wheels, and it's stupid how cool this thing is. One of Donnie's finest inventions, it's his baby, and an invaluable yet stylish tool for crime fighting. This is just great mindless fun to connect with your inner child even more. Highly recommend. Up next, Minotaur Maze. Scene. We're at Run of the Mill, a pizza restaurant owned by a Latino skeleton yokai. We're going in deep already, I know. Now, imagine you're about to order a fat pie with stacks of cheese and sausage until a sign whispers a seductive suggestion. Quote, "Prove you're champion." End quote. The challenge is a foray down a maze full of pizza-themed yokai and then free pizza with your picture on the wall. What could go wrong? This episode is interesting because it's comedic, but it's also a great character study on Leo's incessant need to be the main character. Up next, Shell in a Cell. Now, I personally don't care for the WWE, but if any of you are, this episode is for you. Shell in a Cell reads like a self-insert pro wrestling fanfic. For any of you who aspire to be like John Cena, who's in the show, by the way,
what you're thinking. He must be the voice of rap.
Then you'll probably relate to how quickly the boys jump at the chance to wrestle. It's some great character building as we see the turtles put together their wrestling personas and roles. Most of them. We also get to meet Ghost Bear, a mutant polar bear pro wrestler, and another recurring baddie. And for any of you who were upset about the boys' dynamics being too different, yeah, this one puts Leo's and Raph's rivalry front and center, so shut up and watch it. Up next, The Longest Fight. In the spirit of driving home the fact the turtles are a couple of teenagers, The Longest Fight captures the very real struggle of trying to watch a show while doing work. You know, like the struggle of working a minimum wage job while you have a YouTube video playing on your phone. That's this episode to a T. While the turtles are trying to Amazon Prime deliver a beatdown on the Foot Clan who's busy trying to rob a bank, they're also trying to catch a live stream of their fave skater. Japanese time zones are the true enemy of this episode. But is there any additional content besides watching Leo flying down an escalator with his phone in a death grip? Oh yeah, it introduces the Shredder's dark armor, the Kuroi Yoroi. It's a Lego playset of evil in this version, and it's some good stuff. Up next, the Gumbus. Imagine you're watching an episode of BuzzFeed Unsolved, but for once, you witness a supernatural phenomena in real time. Out of curiosity, you decide to go explore the site of the haunting, hoping to get a taste of the occult yourself. Now, imagine if you bumped into Shane and Ryan. That's the entire plot of this episode, but the boys run into Baxter Stockman. Baxter gets a big makeover, this time as the boy genius of your local grocery store. Instead of searching for ways to commit crimes against humanity, however, Baxter is hunting for a much more valuable resource: clout, by running a YouTube channel about stacking cans. Wait until he gets his hands on TikTok. Stuck on you, I've got this feeling down deep in my soul that I just can't lose. Guess I'm on my way. Who knew Stuck on You would be about glue? Donnie was being himself again and decided to experiment with some glue still in the beta phases, but he should have thought about how using his brothers as test subjects wasn't a good idea. And all while this is happening, the Foot Clan breaks into the Museum of Art and Framing to retrieve the gauntlet to complete the Kuroi Yoroi. An artifact of such overwhelming power is a hot commodity, and Warren Stone gets tangled into a fight for the gauntlet. We don't like doing spoilers, but we think it's worth saying that Warren Stone, Worm Extraordinaire, gets the gauntlet of all people. Up next, Purple Jackets. Raise your hand if you, as a TMNT fan, have been personally victimized by the color purple. Alright, now it's time to meet the Purple Dragons. Whenever I introduce a victim, friend, to TMNT, I call the Purple Dragons TMNT's version of Team Rocket. They're usually low-level thugs committing equally low-level crime, including petty theft and public indecency. This time, they're a group of Redditors who took one coding bootcamp and made it their whole personality. I think longtime TMNT fans will love seeing familiar faces, so this is a necessary watch. Up next, Smart Lair. I'm about to age myself. Do you all remember that Disney original movie with the evil AI mommy? Donnie was too busy asking about what he could do and not whether or not he should do it. Donnie becomes God, again, and creates the perfect virtual assistant to lull him to sleep with Sigma male affirmations.
I create my own reality. I answer to no authority.
This episode introduces who could have been Metalhead. Sheldon, the AI in question who's also voiced by Greg Sipes. When the boys get the totally terrible and super stupid idea to reprogram Sheldon, hell breaks loose. Even though this sounds like the stuff of nightmares, Donnie does end up walking away with a really cool new gadget. Now apologize to your phone for dropping it. Up next, Hot Soup. The game. The gang has felt suspiciously small for some reason, almost like as if we're missing an important supporting character. Maybe a hockey club toting hockey mask wearing sociopath of anger issues? Casey Jones gets the gender bent treatment and is a foot ninja recruit. It's a pretty big departure, but she's still got that dog in her, and she meets Mikey when he goes on his first social mission to retrieve an elusive copy of Lujitsu's game, Hot Soup. The moment Mikey lands his 3 digits in the building, Casey comes at him with the exact same viciousness as past Casey Jones. Obviously, this is a must for all Casey fans, and I promise she's just as crusty. Up next, Turtle Dega Nights, the Ballad of Ratman. When dads go through a midlife crisis, they usually get a new car, a motorcycle, a new hairline that totally doesn't look like a toupee. But when Splinter gets hit with the crushing reality that we are all victims to time, he enters the Doom Dome's death races. Splinter misses his glory days as Lujitsu, and he decides to drag Mikey and Donnie along with the Turtle Tank as their entry. Although Splinter pretends this is a bonding exercise with his sons, that quickly falls apart once Donnie confronts him, and then we see Splinter's compassion for the first time. Another one for the Splinter naysayers. I'm writing this at 3 a.m, suck it and watch it. Up next, Warren and Hypno, Sitting in a Tree. Kissing, happy late Pride Month, and welcome to Pride Year, baby. It's April's birthday, and by that virtue, things are about to get messy. Sorry, honey. After Warren Stone gains possession of the Kuroi Yoroi gauntlet, he and Hypno decide to move in together. And this is how I know the show is a work of fiction, because getting an apartment in New York is harder than fist-fighting the devil. As our two groups attempt to go about their day, they're interrupted by Baron Draxum. He's here for the gauntlet, and he's willing to break up a marriage if necessary. This episode is a good follow-up to Stuck on You because of 2 things. 1, we get a satisfying end to Warren Stone's character arc, and 2, Baron Draxum gains possession of the gauntlet, propelling the plot forward. Up next, Operation Normal. We just talked about April's terrible, no good, horrible birthday, and now she's in another kerfuffle. Socializing. April laments that she doesn't have a normal life, and to try and live her most normal girl boss life, she tries to befriend her classmate, Sunita. Unbeknownst to April, Sunita is actually a slime yokai with dope boots. Dope boots that belong to the Kuroi Yoroi. Yeah, she's on the Foot's hit list, so April teams up with her new friend to keep the Foot clan from assembling the Shredder. New character introductions are never a bad thing, and we get some minor plot progression. Up next, Sparring Partner. I love the idea of one of the heroes befriending someone from the enemy side, and of course Raph's the one who does it, and he keeps it a secret. Frankenfoot is Raph's build-a-best friend, made from the leftover scraps of an origami ninja. If there's anything I've learned, pissing off a friend is scarier than pissing off your partner. And Frankenfoot goes on an absolute rampage when Raph says some mean things about him. But things work out. Frankenfoot stops going on his war against red bandanas, and he becomes a new ally to the Turtles. It's such a good Raph-centric episode, and we get a weird new friend. Up next, Snow Day. Look me in the eyes, and tell me you don't want to hear the TMNT cast open with a musical number. If you say otherwise, you're a filthy liar. The boys make the most out of a snow day in NYC, getting in some sweet slice of life bonding moments of April. Ghost Bear laments getting blasted on live television. He commits himself to a new full-time career of ruining their day. Nope, not petty whatsoever. I'm not here to judge. Everything goes wrong. However, when a hidden Uskito mutates Ghost Bear into an even bigger disappointment. I was personally giggling with my back hunched in front of my monitor because I am a sucker for musical numbers and new outfits. We highly recommend this because it's a great follow-up to the wrestling episode. And the boys say gay rights. You'll know it when you see it. Up next, Bug Busters. Now this introduces Big Mama, the woman who leaves me with the most dubious moral compass whenever I lay eyes upon her. Unlike most of the episodic structure of the series, Bug Busters takes place directly after Mystic Mayhem, featuring the boys collecting Uskitos ravaging NYC. No, I don't understand their biology, and neither do they. Except Donnie, obviously. It's a mutagen-heavy episode with a heavy focus on yokai society, and of course, Big Mama is going to become one of the biggest recurring antagonists throughout the series. Great watch for world building. Up next, the Evil League of Mutants. Absolutely necessary watch. The Evil League of Mutants is self-explanatory. Sick of a couple of kids ruining their plans? Sound familiar? The villains of Rise gather together to stomp out the mutant menace that is the Turtles. It's a good classic Rogues Gallery team-up a la Spectacular Spider-Man. If you know, you know. Up next, The Ancient Art of Ninja Hide and Seek. A perfect watch for some good old-fashioned training. This episode is a show that Splinter does care for his sons and still trains them to the best of his ability, as he's always there for them. Instead of sticking to home videos, Splinter takes an active role in joining his sons on foot, as they team up in a high-stakes game of Snatch the Rat. This is to counter the audience's first impression of Splinter being a no-good, lazy, gumpy footstool of a creature who barely functions as a door stopper. I don't know what came over me. Up next, Shadow of Evil. It is pertinent to view this episode directly after The Ancient Art of Ninja Hide and Seek, as they're like a 2-volume episode pack, focused on fleshing out Splinter's past and present. Hamato Yoshi, or Splinter, is revealed to be Liu Jitsu, famous, totally not Bruce Lee ripoff action star of the quote-unquote 70s. What's interesting about this episode is its inclusion of not just a younger Splinter, but a teenaged Hamato Yoshi. Hardly ever do we get a chance to see Splinter as a teenager, one that acts impulsively with no sense of family duty. The dramatic irony is in how Leo greatly resembles this version of Hamato Yoshi, and of course, this is very relevant to his development. Super necessary watch. Up next, Insane in the Mama Train. If there was an episode capable of converting naysayers into die-hard fans, this is the one. Insane in the Mama Train chronologically takes place after the events of Shadow of Evil, the Turtles now coming to realize the full extent of the Foot Clan's schemes. Their goal is to revive the Shredder by assembling the Kuroyoroi, the dark armor that houses the mortal soul of Orokusaki. It's what the critics of Rise have been begging for since the beginning, a serious take on the TMNT narrative. As a result, the Turtles take the Hamato clan's training to heart, and take their ninjutsu to the next level for the planetary level threat that is the Shredder. There's a delightfully loving homage to the Mirage and IDW comics, and what is it, you ask? We won't rob you of the chance. Just go watch it. Up next, Endgame. The flashy finale to Season 1. The Turtles are unsuccessful in stopping the Kuroyoroi from reforging. The Shredder's revival a reality. In a fit of hopelessness, the Turtles abandon the colors of the Hamato clan, donning their original colors instead. Alongside April, Splinter, and the spirits of the Hamato line, the Turtles launch a final assault. If there was ever a time to invoke the power of family and friendship, it's this episode. It's so anime, I love it, it's great. Why are you still here? Go watch it! Oh wait. We will be taking a short intermission in case you need to go use the restroom, grab some snacks, drink some water. Gotta keep yourself hydrated if you want to keep being a ninja and fighting crime. Just kidding. Up next, Many Unhappy Returns. Although this episode doesn't progress the plot significantly, we learn about deep lore that's even more invaluable. Big Mama and Splinter used to pipe. If he has a chance, so do you. And all of this happens in the backdrop of the Battle Nexus, a yokai-styled Coliseum event. During Splinter's heyday as Lujitsu, it turns out Big Mama used to be the driver for his trailer. Things happened, booties were bumped, and they fell in love. It's a very cute and funny episode with loads of heart, and a very important bonding moment between Splinter and Leo. Up next, Repairin the Baron. I would not be able to show my face in public if I got my ass beat by a couple of kids, ninja ghosts, and a rat. Baron Draxum flees from the public eye and takes up housing in the apartment right above April. Again, how the fuck fuck are they getting cheap apartments this quickly? Mikey takes it upon himself to make Draxum his fixer-upper, believing that he isn't beyond redemption. And what better way than to force him to spend time around humans for a whole day? While villain redemption arcs are nothing new, however, Draxum's involvement in the origins of the Turtles is what makes this episode fascinating watch. It reads as an intervention by a family trying to shepherd their own towards the light, and Mikey's in a dinosaur onesie and a trampoline. You don't need any more reasons beyond that. Up next, Battle Nexus, New York. Shonen tournament arcs are cool. Watching our favorite characters duke it out in interesting fights is cool. So think of this episode as a throwback to the Battle Nexus from 2003 TMNT, but with reality-bending magic. Big Mama takes over NYC for an early Thanksgiving parade with a touch of bloodshed, sending all non-participants to a pocket dimension cruise. There's a juicy twist. The Turtles get paired up with past adversaries to face off against Big Mama's challenges. This episode has a direct connection to the Shredder's rise, and the build-up is so tasty. Great stuff. Up next, Rise. Finale, Part 4. After a good meal comes the dessert. This episode is part 4 of the series finale and sits as the super ultra necessary series finale to cap off Rise. And we're trying our best not to spoil it. If I could bottle the feeling of the thrilling rush you get from completing the series, it's this. The finale is a luxury dessert that encapsulates every single important lesson our characters have learned, be it from fighting, be it from bonding, or be it from making mistakes. All we can say is that this episode captures that feeling. And when you're done, you can watch their movie on Netflix. It really just sets the bar for what exactly you're getting into when you start this series. And we firmly believe that this addresses all of the complaints and criticisms that a lot of critiques levied at this show from the very beginning. Please give it a watch. It's so good. And we don't want to waste any more of your guys' time, so here's a little infographic that we just threw up for you, and I'll also attach it in the link to our paste bin, where you will also find a guide list for Season 2. Oh my god, we're finally done. Is anyone still alive? Anyone? We're only talking to ghosts now. I hope you enjoyed hearing us talk about Rise, because honestly, it deserves a lot more love. I think anyone who loves the art of animation is missing out if you're not giving the show a chance. It was crafted with the purest form of love I've seen in a while, belonging in the same ranks as the Spider-Verse series, Nimona, and Lego Monkey Kid, which I will eventually make a video on, just wait. Watching this show is like an injection of joy straight into your brain, and I don't want anyone to deprive themselves of that. And, yeah, that's enough for me. My socials are below. I post daily on TikTok at Vivi with a V 2.0, and I'm just some internet weirdo who takes fictional characters way too seriously. So if you like that, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell.
Likewise and love wiser to everything Vicky has said. Although I don't do too much on TikTok, you can find me there at Will Succeed the Artist. Also on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and other streaming platforms. Outside of being a huge Ninja Turtle geek, I'm also like an annoying adult theater kid involved in poetry and music, so if you want to tap in with me, my links are also with hers down below. Thanks for having me, Queen. Thank y'all for listening. I hope we got you on the rise, and don't forget to subscribe to my homegirl Vivi with a V, you heard?
Honey, thank you. That is so sweet. And we're just going to end off the episode with good vibes. So, I've been me, Vicky, and I'll see you around.
No one's there. Keep it as a reminder. I just love you, yeah. I just love you, yeah. Said I just love you, yeah. I just love you. Just in case you forgot, my boy Donnie does machines. This movie is here to remind you.
Exactly. What do you say, Donnie? You ready to fly a spaceship? Literally the greatest question I have ever been asked. All right. It's no buttons or computers or anything. Just a lot of trippy, goofy disgustingness. I don't know how to hack it. Okay. I know what I have to do. What? No, I don't think I can do this.
Yeah, this is my shit.